Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I am doing a Q&A style video talking all about my experience as a music teacher back when I used to teach music as a job. I am currently living in the United States. I moved over from Ireland back in the middle of 2019. But when I lived in Ireland, I taught piano and guitar in the evenings privately and also sometimes on the weekends too. That was my full-time job right up until I moved. I first started with a couple of students a week. I believe it was 2 initially, and then I did take on a third one. It was something I did on the side. I was almost going to use the word hobby. It wasn't technically a hobby because my students did pay me for their lessons, but it did in a way feel like a hobby. I was doing it purely because I enjoyed it and it was benefiting me even just on a self-confidence level. But yes, my students did pay me. I don't believe music lessons should ever be free. I believe that musicians deserve to learn an living. I believe that musicians deserve to learn. Damn it! I believe that musicians deserve to earn a living via their art and be paid for their time and their services, whether that's performing or teaching or etc. I eventually acquired more students, and I would say that then I was a part-time music teacher while I also worked a day job. I probably did that for about 8 months, I'd say, after college, and then it really sunk in for me how much I wanted to do the teaching full-time. So I kept working on building my business, putting my name out there, and that led me to teaching enough students that would be considered full-time, and I could financially afford to leave my day job, and I could finally put all my energy and my focus into what I really enjoyed doing. Since starting a YouTube channel, this is a part of my life that I've always kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, just to share my experience. I think the subject of teaching music is very interesting anyway, at least to me, so I want to talk about it. So I asked you guys to submit questions here on the YouTube community tab and also over on Instagram in the stories, and I got a lovely bunch of questions, so thank you so much to everyone who took time out of their day to write a question for me so that I could talk about it in this video. So let's get going. Let's get into the very first question. The folder with the questions. Here it is. I know I've already given a very quick synopsis of how I got into music teaching earlier in the video, but answering this question I can go back even further and talk about how I got into music in the first place and also my experience as a music student. First of all, because you have to be a student before you're a teacher. And I don't think you ever really stop being a student, honestly. So this first question is from Wiccan Leopard Cat on Instagram. Why did you get into music and who inspired you? How I got into music in the first place? Well, really, I grew up in a very musical family. My dad's a musician, my granddads were musicians. I have a lot of family members who are musicians and were musicians. I would say that I grew up with music. I grew up with good music. There was always great music playing in the house. My parents have great taste, so Tom Petty, Vince Gill, a lot of really great music. I was always very gravitating towards music as a kid. I loved Riverdance. I loved to dance to anything, really. There's a lot of old footage of me and my sister and my brother just dancing. That's how we would spend an afternoon as kids. There's so much footage of us just dancing to random music. So I would say music was just kind of part of it. I always loved instruments even before I played them. I just was always very intrigued by instruments of any kind. When I started school, I did recorder. I feel like everyone did recorder. When I was 8 years old, I started piano lessons. I was taught piano by a lovely lady who was a friend of the family. I actually remember my very first piano lesson, it's kind of a weird thing to remember. I don't know. I feel like that should be a hazy memory, but it's just not. I just remember my first piano lesson. I remember sitting down with her and her showing me the C major scale on the piano and how to play it with the proper fingers. I don't know why that sticks in my brain. It just does. I played piano up until age 16, I think, and then I took a little break for a while. Anyone who's watching from Ireland, you'll know, and you've done piano lessons, you'll know what the Royal Irish Academy of Music is. So I did the grades facilitated through their curriculum, through my teacher. So I did my exams. Classical training is what it was. Age 8 to 16, and then I took a break for a little while, and then I did pick it up again when I went to college. Rewind a little bit. I do remember a little phase when I was 11 of playing the drums, because my dad's a drummer, so he kind of showed me the very basic part of playing the drums, which is literally like your standard beat, 1 on the bass drum, 2 on the snare drum, and then getting the hi-hat in with that as well. So I'm able to do that. I remember how to do that, but that's pretty much it. It's never really great with the fills and stuff. I wouldn't say like a real lightning bolt of inspiration hit me until I was 13. It was the summer I was 13, about to turn 14, because my birthday's in July. We went to see Bryan Adams in Pearse Stadium in Galway, in Salthill in Galway. 2006 was the year. I'd seen live music before, but I would say that was my first like concert, like a big like headliner. He was also supported by the Hothouse Flowers and the Stunning. And I just remember that. So that was my first experience of like live music with a big like rock band with hits. And I was fairly familiar with Bryan Adams and his music because, you know, I just, even as a kid, I just knew Summer of '69. I'd heard that song. I knew who he was, but I think actually seeing him play live for the first time, I was like, holy crap. I came away from that concert like, I'm going to pick up the guitar, like I'm so inspired, like I was just raring to go. That's what happened. I went home, I picked up the guitar, and I don't really remember what happened after that. I just kept learning. I went home and learned how to play Summer of '69, and that's it. It took off from there, and here we are. That's why I got into music and who inspired me. Also, I would say my dad, before Bryan Adams, just the initial exposure to music and watching him play live with his band at the time. Anyways, let's move on to the next question. So I'm drinking water out of my Photo Wildlife water bottle. Shout out to County Cork. Next question is from Crystal Palmborg. Now, Crystal actually left quite a few questions. I'm going to try my best to answer them all because she asked a whole load of different really good ones. Thanks, Crystal, for all the comments you left. How long have you been teaching music? How long have I been teaching music? Well, I'm not currently teaching music, but I taught music, I would say, 4 years, I would say, maybe pushing into 5. No, 4 years. Yeah. About 4 years. Next question is from Pixie Dust Megan. When you first started teaching, were you nervous or more excited? I would definitely say I was nervous. Definitely nervous, especially back then, but even a little bit now. Like, I am a shy person, I would say, which kind of sounds contradictory to having a YouTube channel. It probably is. I was nervous of the fact that like I had someone that was like coming to me for like guidance and education, and like obviously they're paying for their lessons, so I want to make sure it's worthwhile, so I have to deliver at my very best. And that's nerve-wracking when you've never done that before. I certainly got into a flow after a while, but initially, I suppose I'm used to being a student, so then to take on the role of teacher, that's pressure. And you want to make sure their lesson is good and that they enjoy it and that they take something away from it. I can't really sit there and be shy. I have to like take charge. This is what you need to do if you want to do this. Yeah, I was definitely nervous, but I got on with it, and I got to a place where it wasn't so nerve-wracking anymore. Next question, another one from Crystal. How many instruments can you teach someone how to play? So when I was teaching, I taught primarily guitar and piano. That's what I taught, those 2 instruments. It was about split down the middle, roughly, of guitar students and piano students. I did have a couple of ukulele students as well later on. I'm not like the most amazing ukulele player, very basic. But I had a couple of students that wanted to learn to help accompany singing. Question from GuitarMat191. How would you go about starting to teach a total beginner on guitar, showing them the basic chords first, practicing a basic strum pattern, or a combination of both? Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, GuitarMat. I would show the basic chords and then introduce a strumming pattern in the right hand. I had a sheet like that I hand drew really nice and neat with all of the open chords that, you know, the beginners need to know, and I would just photocopy, and every student would have a copy of that. These chords are what you need to know basically to play guitar. So I would give them the sheet initially and would start with a couple. Usually what I would show them first is E minor and A major. E minor is the easiest chord to pick up in my opinion because it's only 2 fingers, they're right next to each other. I don't think I had one student that wasn't able to at least get that. So I would start them on the E minor chord, and then I would do like a down up in the right hand, kind of get both hands going very slowly. Before I'd even do that, I would very quickly explain, like I wouldn't go into too much detail because it can be overwhelming for a beginner, but just like the basic parts of the guitar, like this is the body, this is the neck, this is the head, these are the strings, and like the string names, like you will eventually have to learn the string names, but like don't worry about it for now. Just kind of explain the basic parts of the guitar, and then I would go into the E minor chord and we'd kind of practice strumming, like we'd do a down strum and then an up strum, and then we'd kind of do that. We'd also learn how to count very basically, so I would say rhythm is very important, and like any songs that you listen to on the radio or any music you listen to, you'll be able to count a beat to it, and most songs have 4 beats in every bar in the song. So in your head, like you want to be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever, faster or slower. So you want to think about counting your beats while you're strumming. So it kind of start to introduce a little bit of rhythm too, because rhythm is quite hard to teach, and also get them to like make up their own strum pattern for like a bit of homework. Down, up, but mix it up, like do up, down, or you know, up, down, up, kind of get them to think a little bit too. Usually in the first lesson, we would cover E minor and then move to A. Literally, you're just moving 2 fingers and then you're adding in your 3rd finger. I think when it's broken down like that, at least for me, I found that it was quite, most, if not all of my students picked that up pretty quickly. That's usually how I would go about in the first lesson or 2, and then we would just slowly introduce more chords, and I would usually try and apply a song to a lesson as well that the chords would apply to. Next question is from Yorick. Was it hard to learn the guitar at first? I'm assuming that question is directed at me, like learning guitar at first. Yeah, I would say guitar is definitely one of the harder instruments to learn. It's probably not the hardest, but it's certainly not the easiest. I used to always say that to my guitar students when they were starting out, like, have a bit of patience, because getting a sound out of a guitar is a little trickier than getting a sound out of a piano. Not that the piano is easy in any capacity, but it's easier to get a sound out of a piano quicker. Like, all you have to do is press the key and your sound is there. The guitar takes a little bit more technique, a little bit more time, because you can have, like, you know, muted strings, you know, it can get quite messy with your fingers. Any guitar player will relate to this. Your hands, you know, going in a certain way that they feel like they shouldn't be going that way. Your fingers in weird places, and then trying to get all the strings to sound is like, that's tricky to get, especially in the beginning. Beginners need a lot of patience. It looks so easy when we watch someone else do it. There's a lot going on when you're playing guitar. I don't want to say it's hard to, like, discourage people, because I never want to discourage anyone from picking something up, but I won't lie to you either and say that it's easy, because I definitely found it hard in the beginning. It definitely took me a while before I got going. It's definitely hard, but not impossible. What is your favorite song and or favorite style of music to teach? I wouldn't say I have a favorite song that I taught. I had a bunch of songs that I taught, and I was always adding and removing and changing that up. But my favorite style of music, I suppose, when it came to guitar, it was mostly like pop and rock. Really, I would always kind of ask the student, like, I really wanted to get their input of, like, what do you listen to? Because everyone is different, and also it helps to, like, get them more excited, learning the songs that they like and learning the songs that they hear. So, you know, there was a lot of Ed Sheeran, there was a lot of Taylor Swift, like, depending on the age group, of course. A lot of pop songs, there was some rock songs too, just certain things I wanted to teach if it was a picking pattern, or after a while I would teach the opening to Wanted Dead or Alive, because that was quite, you know, different. Kind of a new right hand technique and playing higher up the neck. For piano then, it was different depending on what the student wanted. Like I taught some classical techniques for, like, scales and stuff. Again, a bit of everything. Some, like, very simple classical pieces or simple arrangements of classical pieces. There's some pop songs in there for the piano too. It depended. I really wanted to, like, cater each, you know, student kind of differently. I was kind of doing it my own way. I wasn't really going by someone else's curriculum unless the student wanted that. Usually it was a mixture of pop, rock, and classical technique, I would say. Not really too much jazz. Kids don't want to learn jazz, unfortunately. Question from Carolyn. How to plan with a student who has disabilities and or autism? Just wondering what your style would be like. Very interesting question. Every student is so different, and I did have a couple of students who were on the spectrum. I think it's just open communication with the parent, I think, is the key. I feel like I was told everything I needed to know. I didn't want to overwhelm. I didn't want to be overpowering. I mean, I don't really have that type of a demeanor anyway, you can probably tell. I don't really like raising my voice. Like, I wasn't really that kind of teacher where I would like be a shouter. Especially when it's like someone else's kid. I would never feel comfortable doing that. I don't know how it'd be in a school, but I just never would really feel comfortable with like to a kid, especially a kid that wasn't mine. I kept the lesson vibe like very chill. I would always like chat to them, or also not put pressure on them if they didn't want to small talk or if they needed a break. Open communication with the parent, like what's the best way for me to communicate effectively to the student, make sure that they enjoy the lesson and that they're not going to get overwhelmed. We didn't have any issues. We had a great relationship and the lessons were always so fun. I do think I'm very patient. I will say that about myself, is that I have the patience of a flipping saint. It takes a lot to test my patience. I do think that helped me a lot in teaching. It would be the kind of thing that would make me nervous because I suppose I'm not technically qualified in that sense to teach someone like with autism or teach someone on the spectrum. So I suppose I would get a little bit of anxiety of like, oh God, am I the right person? Like, is that okay? But I kind of, honestly, I just went with my gut. I think speaking with the parent with a mixture of going with your gut and also just reading the situation when you're in it, kind of a mixture of all that, making it like a nice, chill experience, but also learning and, effective practicing. That's how I would approach and how I did approach something like that, and it all worked out. That's the best I can say to that. I'm sure there's people who are like way more qualified in that realm. I wouldn't say I'm that person. I literally just went with my gut, spoke to the parent, established a good relationship, trust, and all that. I hope that answers your question, Carolyn. Are there any other instruments you would like to try to learn yourself and teach in the future? Well, I don't think I would ever learn an instrument with the purpose of then teaching it. I think if I was to learn an instrument, it would be like for myself to learn. If I got to a point in time in the future that I would feel like confident and qualified enough to teach that instrument, then great. Guitar and piano, I feel I'm like comfortable in my knowledge of them, that I have some wisdom to pass on to a student. I mean, I love the sound of the cello. I also love the Irish harp. I think I'd love to learn that one day. Also the saxophone. Oh, I love the saxophone. I'd love to be good on the drums, honestly. I'm kind of learning bass right now. Like, I'm not a bass player. I play bass like a guitar player, but now that I have a bass in the last few months for the first time, thinking more about bass lines lately and kind of trying to figure that out. I don't want to go too crazy in learning a bunch of different instruments because I still have a lot on guitar that I need to work on, so I never want to lose focus of that because I have goals with the guitar that I am going to get to that need a lot of work still. Before I would pick up anything new to like learn to a high level, I would go back to the guitar and work on that. Next question's from Tuffy, ukulele. Can I take a ukulele lesson from you? Well, first of all, you don't need a ukulele lesson from me because you're a better ukulele teacher and player than me, so you don't need to ask me for lessons. I need to take lessons from you. You have guitar experience. Ukulele and guitar are so similar, yet they're not. I played slack key guitar a while back and got yelled at because I kept playing it like a ukulele, lol. But I've never actually played just guitar, too many strings. Also, by the way, slack key is beautiful. I wish I could play slack key. I was at like a seminar for it and oh my god, it was so cool. Ukulele is kind of a great introduction. And I don't mean this to sound like to belittle the ukulele, because I don't mean it like that at all, because the ukulele is great and it's so fun, and my god, there's people that can do stuff with the ukulele. I would say it's a great introductory to stringed instruments if that's a route that a child wants to go down. The chord shapes are similar but different. I'd be afraid of like people getting mixed up there, like a D chord, a D shape on the ukulele is a G chord on the ukulele, but when you move it to guitar, that same chord shape, it's a D chord, so could be confusing for like some beginners. Plus the ukulele sounds a lot nicer in the beginning than a guitar does. Like a guitar can sound quite painful when you're in the beginning stages, but I feel like a uke just kind of sounds nice even just when you play it open. This is something that a parent can listen to over and over again and not be driven mad. Next question is from B. Patricia. Why do you love to be a music teacher? Well, really because I love music, honestly. I can't explain how much I like live and breathe it. It's just just something that's really important to me as a person. Like, it's one of the first things I think about when I wake up in the morning. It's part of my life every day. Like, I don't know what I would do without it. That thought scares me, to think if there was never music in the world, like what would I do? Also, I just watched Coda like a couple nights ago. It was such a beautiful movie, but like it really like made me realize, God, yeah, sometimes I take music for granted. Sometimes I take my hearing for granted, and lots of people take music for granted and think that it should be obtained for free. I love music, so any excuse to talk about music, first of all, with anyone is you know, something I love to do. I love to talk about music. I loved the element of like just kind of passing what I know to someone younger. Not always someone younger, I taught adults too, but just passing that to someone else, especially someone who's like excited about it and like really wants to learn. It's kind of cool to have someone sitting in front of you that comes in like fresh, is like, I don't know how to do this, I don't know what I'm doing, to fast forward a few weeks or months or even years and to like see them doing it. I helped facilitate that, and that's really cool. Next question is from MS19. What has been your happiest memory of teaching to date? Oh gosh, I have a lot of happy memories, honestly. I mean, there was so many times when like a student like really made me laugh, because some kids are just so hilarious and they'll come out with anything. All of them I got on really well with. I suppose my personal philosophy will say with teaching, I wanted to like effectively teach a lesson with like structure and homework and practice, and like they're doing what they're there and what they're paying to be there for, which is learn an instrument. With that, also make it like happy, fun, not like an intimidating scenario, because I just know of so many people who have been like traumatized by lessons they took when they were a kid, when they were younger, that made them like not want to go back. And I know I've certainly been there, of like not wanting to do something anymore, not because of the thing itself, but because the experience with the teacher was just kind of ruined it. To me, that's such a pity. That's theft, in my opinion, is someone like taking that from you. I did have a student, and I remember speaking to their parent. They had another child, like a sibling of the child I was teaching, that they were trying to get this sibling to do lessons as well. And this kid was a bit older, and they were telling me that like, yes, my other child had done lessons in the past and had such a bad experience with the teacher that they just don't want to do it at all, and it's nothing to do with the music, and it was just such a bad experience. And they were telling this to me, but like they're having such a different experience with me, like teaching the other child, that they were kind of trying to explain like, no, it's not like before, like this one's like much different, and you maybe try it and you might actually like it. I was just so sad for that kid, because I was like, I guarantee they would not have the same experience with me, because I never wanted to be that for someone. And I was like aware of that while I was teaching. Like, I don't want to make this traumatizing for you. You're here to learn music and to have a bit of fun, talk about music, and that's all I ever wanted it to be for someone. I was never trying to like create prodigies, get people into college or anything like that. I had a variety of ages, but most of my students were in the like 7 to 12 bracket, like age-wise. That was always my philosophy from the beginning, was like, you know, I'm not trying to create prodigies. I'm not trying to like shove music theory down their throats to a point where they don't want to do it anymore. I just want to come in and have fun while also like having a structured learning experience. Most of these kids probably won't continue to do it, or they might take a break, or, you know, whatever, that's normal in life. May even come up later in life, you know, 10, 20, 30 years on, because adults like choose to learn something. So usually when they want to learn something, it's like a personal choice, so they'll commit more to it, especially if they put money and time into it. Like me with Irish dancing now, I'm learning Irish dancing as an adult, so it's like something I'm choosing to do actively. I chose to put the money into it, so I'm choosing to put the work into it and the time into it. So I always wanted to just like maybe just plant a seed that might not grow for now or for a while, but maybe in the future that kid might be like, actually, yeah, I'd love to play guitar, I'd love to play piano. And I had a teacher when I was a kid, and she was really nice, and, you know, it was a good experience for me. Maybe I'll try and pick it up again. And I don't know, sometimes you'd be surprised with stuff that you'd remember. I can't really specifically pinpoint one happy memory, but I just remember it as being like a happy thing that I did that I really enjoyed. Not to say it was perfect, it certainly wasn't perfect, and there's like any job, there's aspects of it that's negative and a little tricky to deal with, but overall, all of it was a happy memory. And my final question is from Matthew_MO8. Love you, Matthew. Did you enjoy teaching and would you do it again? Yes, I did enjoy teaching, very much. Again, parts of any job that are difficult and kind of make you go, oh, do I really want to keep doing this? I think any job where you deal with people and deal with quite a lot of people, like, of course, you're going to have ups and downs. But yes, the actual teaching part, yes, I really enjoyed. I loved planning lessons. I loved like getting new ideas for lessons. Once I got over the initial nerves, I loved the actual like sitting with a student and teaching them and showing them how to do something and just conversing with a student I really liked. Would I do it again? Yes, I would do it again. I'm not doing it currently for a few reasons, really. I don't really have like all of the resources right now. I think if I was to do it, I don't know if I'd do it on Zoom or how I'd do it. It is something I'd like to do again at some point. I don't see myself doing it right now or in the foreseeable future. It's just resources, and also I'm in a brand new country. I'm still like a little bit of a fish out of water in that sense. All of that stuff I feel like is a process. I will never say never. I loved teaching. I don't really know what that would look like if I was to teach again, but certainly not right now or anytime soon. My energy and my passion is in other things right now, but I did love it. I learned so much. I learned a lot about myself. I kind of learned on the job as well. I learned what I was doing as I was going along, and I feel like that actually did help me get better at it. I got more self-confidence. I think I got better at like speaking with people and speaking to people. I also learned what not to do, which is another topic. I loved it. It was definitely a learning experience, my teaching experience. I don't know, this is such a huge, broad topic that I feel like I could, like, I hope this video isn't too long. There's so much more I could talk about. I just was, wary of wanting to answer all the questions I got and not wanting to like talk too much on one specific thing. Maybe I'll do a part 2 if people have more questions after watching this video. If you have any more questions about anything I talked about today, maybe put it in a comment, and maybe if I get enough questions I can do a part 2. That's all my questions. Thank you so much to everyone who wrote a question. It means the world to me that you took a little bit of time out of your day to think about something for me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment. Links in the description if you would like to support further. YouTube member, Patreon, merch store, all that stuff in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!